Kang Minsu was dreaming about his latest business deal when the phone rang. The sound cut through his sleep like a knife. His eyes snapped open. The clock on his nightstand glowed 3:17 a.m. Rain drummed against the tall windows of his penthouse, apartment high above Seoul. Nobody called him at this hour. Nobody had this number except his closest security team. Minsu reached for the secure phone with a frown. Maybe there was trouble at one of his companies. Hello. His voice was rough from sleep. Dad, please help me. The voice hit him like a punch to the chest. It was young, maybe 16 or 17, female, scared out of her mind. But that wasn't what made his blood freeze. It was how she said dad. Like she had said it 1,000 times before. Minsu sat up straight. I think you have the wrong number. No, Dad, it's me, Hannah. I'm trapped and they're coming, please. You have to get me out of here. The words came out in a rush. Panic filled every syllable. But Minsu had never heard this voice before in his life. He had no children, had never been married, had never even had a serious girlfriend who might have kept a child secret from him. His life was work, money, and more work. Yet something deep in his chest recognized that voice, something that made no sense at all. Listen, young lady, I don't know who you are, but, Dad, please, she interrupted. You have to believe me. I know this sounds crazy, but I'm your daughter and I need help right now. Minsu's mouth went dry. The raw terror in her voice was real. This wasn't some prank call or scam. This girl truly believed he was her father, and was. Part of him wanted to believe her too. Where are you? The words came out before he could. Stop them. Sector 7 Alpha. Coordinates 847.3 by 291.7. The Vex are breaking through the barriers. They found our hiding spot and the line exploded with noise. Bright flashes of light seemed to come through the phone itself. Energy weapons discharged with sharp crackling sounds. People screamed in the background. Heavy footsteps pounded on metal floors. Hannah! Minsu shouted into the phone. Hannah, are you there? More weapons fire. A male voice yelled something in a language Minsu had never heard. It sounded harsh, like grinding metal. Then a sound that made his skin crawl. Something that might have been laughter, but wrong. Like it came from a throat that wasn't human. Dad, they're here. They found us. I have to go, but please come get me. I'll try to call again if I can. I love you. The line went dead. Minsu stared at the phone in his shaking hands. Static filled his ears. Outside, the rain kept falling against his windows. But now it sounded different. LONELIA. He pressed redial. Nothing. The call hadn't come from any number his phone could recognize. According to the display, the call had lasted 3 minutes and 47 seconds, but those coordinates the girl had given him, Sector 7 Alpha, 847.3 by 291.7. Those weren't any Earth coordinates. He knew. Minsu got up and walked to his window. Seoul spread out below him. Millions of lights twinkling in the darkness. Somewhere out there. Did he have a daughter he had never known about? It seemed impossible. He was careful about his personal life. Very careful. But that voice, when she had said his name, when she had called him Dad, something inside him had responded, like a key turning in a lock he didn't know existed. He picked up his secure phone again and dialed his head of security. Park Ji-won speaking. The man sounded alert despite the early hour. D1. I need you to trace a call. It came to my secure line 3 minutes ago. Sir, are you all right? You sound shaken. Minsu looked at his reflection in the dark window. He did look shaken. His black hair was messy from sleep, and his usually calm eyes were wide with something that might have been fear. I'm fine. Just trace the call. G1. I need you to run a background check on me. Sir, you heard me. Go back 20 years. Look for anything unusual. Any medical procedures. Any companies that might have had access to my genetic material. And see if you can find any meaning for coordinates 847.3 by 291.7 in something called Sector 7 Alpha. There was a pause, sir. Those sound like space coordinates. I know how they sound. Just do it. Minsu hung up and sat back down on his bed. The phone felt heavy in his hands. That girl, Hannah, had been so certain, so desperate, and those sounds in the background, the weapons fire, the inhuman laughter. What if she was telling the truth? What if somehow, impossible as it seemed, he did have a daughter out there, a daughter who was in terrible danger and calling for him to save her? Minsu closed his eyes and tried to remember the sound of her voice saying Dad. It had sounded so right, so natural, like coming home. He opened his eyes and looked out at the stars barely visible through Seoul's bright lights. Somewhere out there, maybe 40 light years away, a girl who called him Dad was fighting for her life, and Kang Minsu, who had never been a father, felt something he had never felt before. He felt like one. Minsu barely slept the rest of the night. Every time he closed his eyes, he heard that voice calling him Dad. He was at his office by 6 in the morning, pacing behind his desk like a caged animal. The rain had stopped, but grey clouds still covered Seoul. At 8:30, Park Ji-won knocked on his door. Minsu's head of security looked like he had not slept either. His usually neat black suit was wrinkled and his eyes were red. "Come in," Minsu said. "What did you find?" Ji-won closed the door behind him and walked slowly to the desk. His face was serious in a way that made Minsu's stomach twist. Double quotes about that call last night. "I traced it through our systems." Ji-won paused and took a deep breath. "Our quantum communication ray was breached. Someone hacked into our most secure network." "How is that possible?" "That system cost me $50 million. You said it was unhackable." "It is unhackable by any technology on Earth." Ji-won's voice was quiet. "Sir." The signal came from 40 light years away. Minsu stopped pacing. "That's impossible." "I thought so too, but I checked it 3 times. The signal traveled faster than light somehow. It came from deep space." Ji-won placed a thick file on the desk. The cover was stamped with red letters that said classified. "This is what I found when I looked into your background." Minsu stared at the file like it might bite him. "What is it?" 20 years ago. You had surgery to remove your appendix. St. Mary's Hospital. You were 28 years old." "I remember." "So what?" Ji-won opened the file. Inside were medical records, legal documents, and photographs that made no sense. Your genetic material was collected during that surgery, without your knowledge or permission. It was sold to a company called Helix Corporation. They stole my DNA. Minsu felt sick. "Yes, sir. But here's the strange part. Helix Corporation vanished exactly 3 months after they bought your genetic material. Their offices were empty. Their bank accounts were closed. Their employees all disappeared. Like they never existed." Minsu picked up one of the photographs. It showed a building that looked normal from the outside, but the inside was filled with strange equipment he had never seen before. Machines that seemed to bend light around them, computers that floated in the air without any support. "This technology," Minsu said slowly, "it's not from Earth, is it?" "No, sir, I don't think it is." Ji-won sat down heavily in the chair across from the desk. I think Helix Corporation was run by someone not human. And I think they took your DNA off-world. But why? Why my DNA? You're one of the smartest people on Earth. Your IQ is over 200. You built a technology empire from nothing. You see solutions where other people see problems. G1 pulled out. Another document. But you weren't the only one. They also collected genetic material from Nobel Prize winners, Olympic athletes, famous artists, military heroes. The best humanity has to offer. Minsu's hands were shaking as he read the list of names. People he knew, people he respected. All of them had been robbed without knowing it. They didn't clone me. He said quietly, "They made something better, enhanced. That's what the files call it. They took your intelligence and made it stronger, your creativity and made it sharper. Then they grew children with those enhanced abilities." G1's voice was barely a whisper, "Sir, we think there could be hundreds of your genetic children out there, maybe thousands, and someone is using them as soldiers." Minsu thought about the sounds he had heard on the phone, the weapon's fire, the fear in Hannah's voice. "My daughter is trapped in some kind of war zone 40 light years from home. What do you want to do, sir?" Minsu looked out his office window at the city below. Millions of people going about their normal lives. None of them knew that humanities. Children were fighting and dying in space. None of them knew that Earth might not be alone in the universe. "I want to go get her," he said. "Sir, we don't have the technology to travel 40 light years. No one on Earth does. Then we'll build it." Minsu stood up and walked to his computer. "Money is no object. I'll spend every cent I have if I need to." Within 6 hours, Minsu had made dozens of phone calls. He contacted the smartest people he knew, scientists who worked in secret government projects, engineers who designed spacecraft, pilots who had trained for missions that were never supposed to exist. By the next morning, 4 people sat in his conference room. Kim Tae-young was a former Navy SEAL who had been part of a classified space program. His face was scarred from battles he could not talk about, but his eyes were sharp and focused. Dr. Lee Sora was a quantum physicist who had written papers about faster-than-light travel. The government had buried her research, but Minsu had found her working as a university professor. Captain Yoon Jae-won was a pilot who had test-flown experimental aircraft that officially did not exist. He was quiet but confident, the kind of man who could fly anything with wings or engines. And Park Ji-won, who knew more about classified technology than anyone had a right to know. "Gentlemen, Dr. Lee," Minsu said as he looked round the table, "we're going to build humanity's first faster-than-light rescue ship. And we're going to bring my daughter home." The ship shuddered as it dropped out of hyperspace. Minsu gripped his chair, his stomach lurching from the sudden stop. Through the main view screen, stars appeared where there had been nothing but swirling. Like moments before. "Coordinates confirmed," Captain Yoon said from the pilot's seat. "We're at Sector 7 Alpha." Minsu leaned forward, scanning the darkness of space. "I don't see anything." Dr. Lee worked at her console, fingers flying over the controls. "Wait, I'm picking up something massive. It's huge." The view screen flickered and suddenly a structure appeared before them. It was enormous, maybe 10 miles across, made of some kind of crystal that seemed to bend light around it. The surface was smooth and dark, like black glass, but it pulsed with veins of blue energy, cloaking technology. Kim Tae-young said quietly. The former soldier studied the structure with professional interest. "Very advanced. They can hide something that big from any Earth sensors. Life signs," Dr. Lee announced, her voice filled with wonder and horror. "Thousands of them, all human. My God." She whispered, "It's a prison." Minsu stared at the alien structure floating in the void. Somewhere inside that crystal fortress was his daughter. The daughter he had never known existed until 3 days ago. The daughter who had called him in terror, begging for help. "How do we get inside?" he asked. Captain Yun studied his instruments. "There's a docking bay on the lower section. Looks like it's designed for smaller ships. I can get us in. But we'll have to be quiet about it. Their sensors will detect us the moment we get close," Kim said. "Not if we use their own technology against them." Dr. Lee pulled up a schematic on her screen. "I've been studying the energy patterns from that cloaking field. I think I can match our ship's signature to theirs, make us invisible to their systems." 20 minutes later, their ship slipped through the alien docking bay like a ghost. The bay was empty except for strange vehicles that looked like they were grown rather than built. Everything was too tall, too narrow, designed for beings that were not human. Kim led the way through the corridors, his weapon ready. The walls were made of the same crystal as the outside. But here they were transparent. Through them, Minsu could see other levels, other corridors, and in those corridors he saw them, children, teenagers, all human, all wearing the same grey uniforms. They moved in groups, their faces serious and alert. These were not normal kids playing games. These were soldiers. Dr. Lee pointed to a group of young people practicing with weapons that fired beams of light. Enhanced reflexes, enhanced strength. "Look how fast they move." Minsu watched a girl who could not be more than 15 flip over a beam of energy and return fire with perfect accuracy. Her movements were too quick, too precise. No normal human could move like that. "They're all like this?" he asked. "All of them," Park Ji-won confirmed, checking his scanner. "Genetic enhancements across the board, increased intelligence, faster reflexes, stronger bodies. They took the best of human DNA and made it better." They moved deeper into the prison. The corridors were filled with the sound of marching feet, weapons training, and voices speaking in languages that were almost English, but not quite. The children had developed their own way of talking, mixing Earth languages with words that sounded alien. "Guards approaching," Kim warned. They pressed against the crystal wall as 3 figures walked past. Minsu's blood went cold. The guards were tall, maybe 8 feet, with forearms and faces that looked like a cross between an insect and a reptile. Their skin was dark green and seemed to shift and move on its own. Yellow eyes swept the corridor, but somehow did not see the hidden humans. "Vex," he whispered, remembering the name Hannah had used on the phone. They continued deeper, following Dr. Lee's scanner toward the strongest concentration of human life signs. The prison seemed to go on forever, level after level of training. Rooms, sleeping quarters, and laboratories. In some rooms, Minsu saw adult humans in white coats working with alien technology. They looked tired and scared. "Scientists," Park said quietly. "They're forcing our people to work for them. Building weapons," Kim added, recognizing some of the equipment. "Weapons designed to be used against Earth." Finally, they reached the deepest level. Here the corridors were quieter, but the walls were thicker. This was where they kept the most dangerous prisoners, or maybe the most valuable ones. Dr. Lee's scanner beeped softly. "She's close." Very close. They turned a corner and found a door, marked with symbols that hurt to look at. Beyond it, Minsu could sense something familiar, something that called to him. Kim worked on the lock with tools that Dr. Lee had designed. The door slid open with a whisper of air. Inside was a small room with a single occupant, a girl, maybe 17 years old, sitting on a simple bed. She had black hair like his, dark eyes like his. And when she looked up, Minsu saw his own face, looking back at him. But her eyes held something he's never had, the weight of war, the knowledge of things no child should know. "Dad," she whispered, and stood up slowly. It was her. The voice from the phone. Hannah. His daughter. She ran to him, and he caught her in his arms. She was real. She was alive, and she was his. "I knew you'd come," she said into his shoulder. "I knew you wouldn't leave me here." "How many?" Minsu asked, looking round the small prison cell. "How many others?" Hannah pulled back and looked into his eyes. 3,000 of us on this ship alone, all children of Earth's greatest minds. They've been raising us as soldiers, training us to invade our home world." She smiled, and it was not a nice smile. "But they made a mistake, Dad. A big mistake." "What mistake?" "They taught us to fight. They gave us weapons and tactics and strategy. They made us stronger and smarter and faster than any human has ever been." Her smile grew wider. "But they never understood what makes humans really dangerous. They never understood that we don't just fight to win. We fight to protect the people we love." Hannah pulled a small device from her pocket. It looked like a piece of alien technology, but she had modified it with parts that were clearly human-made. Her fingers moved over it with practiced ease. "What is that?" Minsu asked. "Communication device. Modified to reach every enhanced human on this ship." She looked at her father with eyes that were far too old for her face. "We've been planning this for months, waiting for the right moment." "Planning what?" "Our freedom." Hannah pressed a button on the device. A soft tone echoed through the walls, barely audible but somehow felt in the bones. Within seconds, alarms began blaring throughout the prison. Red lights flashed in the corridors. The sound of running feet echoed from every direction, but these were not the heavy steps of Vex gods. These were lighter, faster, more human. "Now we go," Hannah said, grabbing a weapon from under her bed. It was clearly alien-made, but had been changed, improved. "Stay close to me, Dad. Things are about to get very loud." They stepped into the corridor just as a group of Vex gods came round the corner. The aliens moved in perfect formation, their weapons raised. But they were too slow. 3 enhanced humans dropped from air vents above them. 2 more came round the far corner. A 6th one seemed to appear from nowhere, moving so fast he was just a blur. The Vex gods were down before they could fire a single shot. "Hannah," one of the young fighters called out. He looked maybe 19, with features that reminded Minsu of a famous Olympic swimmer. "Section C is clear. Teams 5 and 6 have." "The armory." "Good. What about the control room?" "Mira's team is handling it. The Vex are trying to lock down the whole ship, but we're faster than their computers." Minsu watched in amazement as more enhanced humans appeared in the corridor. They moved like nothing he had ever seen. One girl ran up the wall and across the ceiling as easily as walking on the floor. A boy who could not be more than 16 lifted a piece of fallen debris that must have weighed 500 pounds. The Vex think in hierarchies. Hannah explained as they began moving through the corridors. Everything has to go through command. Orders come from the top and everyone below follows them exactly. No thinking, no creativity. A group of Vex gods appeared ahead of them, blocking their path. But before they could react, the enhanced humans had already adapted. 2 of them created a distraction on the left, while 3 others attacked from the right. A 6th one used the confusion to get behind the aliens and disable their weapons. But we learned something they never expected. Hannah continued, stepping over the unconscious gods. We learned to think like humans. They reached a main corridor where the battle was louder. Dozens of enhanced humans fought against Vex gods, but it was not really a fight. It was more like a dance where only one side knew the steps. Minsu watched a girl who looked like she shared DNA with a famous chess champion. She was not just fighting the alien in front of her, she was thinking 3 moves ahead, setting up attacks that would not pay off for several seconds. When they did, the Vex never saw them coming. A boy with the build of a marathon runner was not just running fast. He was calculating angles, using the walls and ceiling to change direction in ways that made no sense to alien minds. He moved like physics was just a suggestion. They made us stronger and faster, Hannah said as they fought their way toward the docking bay. But that's not what makes us dangerous. What makes us dangerous is that we improvise, we adapt. We create new solutions on the fly. More alarms sounded. The lights changed from red to blue, which seemed to confuse the Vex gods but had no effect on the humans. They're trying to gas us. One of the enhanced humans called out, switching to Plan C immediately. Every human in the corridor pulled out breathing masks. They had been ready for this too. We don't just follow orders, Hannah explained to her father. We think for ourselves. We work together. We protect each other. The Vex can't understand that. They reached the docking bay where Captain Yoon was waiting with their ship. But they were not alone. Hundreds of young humans were flooding into the bay, carrying alien weapons and technology that Minsu did not recognize. Time to go home, Minsu said. But Hannah shook her head. We're not running, Dad. We're taking their ship. What? This prison is actually a warship. One of their biggest. It has weapons that could destroy entire cities. Technology that could help Earth defend itself. She looked round at her fellow enhanced humans. It's time Earth learned what's coming. A boy who looked like he had inherited the DNA of a famous general stepped forward. The bridge is secure. The engine room is ours. We have control of all major systems and the Vex contained. We're not killers, but we're not letting them warn their fleet either. Hannah turned to her father. Dad, I want you to meet your family. 3,000 of your brothers and sisters. All of us made from the best humanity has to offer. She smiled, and this time it was a smile of hope instead of war. We're coming home. And we're bringing gifts. Minsu looked round at the young faces surrounding him. Each one was human, but enhanced. Each one was his child in a way, sharing his DNA and the DNA of Earth's greatest people. They had been prisoners, but now they were free, and they were coming home to save the world. 6 months after the rescue, people all over Earth looked up at the sky and saw something impossible. A massive ship was descending through the clouds above Seoul. It was 10 miles long and made of dark crystal that seemed to bend light round it. But instead of bringing death and destruction, it came in peace. The ship landed gently in the fields outside the city. Military forces from every nation surrounded it, but they did not attack. Everyone knew this was the ship that had been stolen from the aliens. Everyone knew it carried Earth's lost children home. President Park stood on a platform in front of the ship as thousands of reporters filmed from a safe distance. World leaders from every major nation stood behind him. This was the most important moment in human history. People of Earth, the president said into the microphones. Today marks a new chapter for humanity. These are Earth's children, returning home with a warning and a gift. The side of the ship opened like a flower blooming. A ramp extended to the ground. And then they came out. 3,000 young people walked down the ramp in perfect formation. They moved with grace and confidence that was clearly not normal. Each one was beautiful in a way that seemed almost too perfect. Each one carried themselves like a warrior who had seen battle, and Mensu stood at the front of the group with Hannah at his side. In the 6 months since the rescue, she had grown even more confident. She was no longer just his daughter. She was a leader, a general, a bridge between two worlds. The enhanced humans spread out across the field in neat rows. They stood at attention, but not like soldiers following orders. They stood like family members showing respect. Hannah stepped forward to the microphones. When she spoke, her voice carried across the field with perfect clarity. My name is Hannah, and I speak for all the enhanced humans you see before you. We are your children, made from your DNA, raised by your enemies. But we never forgot where we came from. She paused and looked directly into the cameras that would carry her words to every person on Earth. The aliens who took us are called the Vex. They have been watching Earth for decades. They stole genetic material from your greatest minds and used it to create us. They planned to use us as soldiers to invade your world and make all humans their slaves. A murmur went through the crowd of reporters and world leaders. This was what everyone had feared since the ship first appeared. But they made a mistake. Hannah continued. They thought they could control us by making us stronger and smarter. They thought they could turn us into weapons by teaching us to fight. But they never understood what makes humans truly dangerous. She gestured to the enhanced humans behind her. They gave us the tools to fight back. They taught us strategy and tactics. They made our bodies stronger and our minds sharper. But they never understood that humans don't just fight to survive. We fight to protect the ones we love. Minsu felt pride swell in his chest as he watched his daughter address the world. This girl who had called him in terror just months ago was now standing before Earth's leaders with the confidence of someone who had faced the worst the universe could offer and won. The Vex fleet is coming, Hannah said. 300 ships, each one carrying enough firepower to destroy entire continents. They will be here in 18 months. The crowd stirred nervously. But Hannah raised her hand for silence. But we brought you gifts. This ship contains technology beyond anything Earth has ever seen. Weapons that can destroy enemy vessels from thousands of miles away. Shields that can protect entire cities. And most importantly, the knowledge of how the Vex think and fight. She smiled, and it was the smile of someone who held all the winning cards. We know their weaknesses because we lived among them. We know their strategies because they taught them to us. We know how to beat them because they made the mistake of teaching us to be human. Over the following weeks, the enhanced humans spread across the globe. They worked with Earth's scientists and engineers to build new defenses. They shared alien technology that would advance human civilization by centuries. They trained Earth's military forces in tactics that the Vex would never expect. But more than that, they became part of human society. These young people who had been raised as weapons found families who welcomed them. They discovered what it meant to have a home worth fighting for. Minsu watched it all happen with wonder. He had started this journey as a man with no family, no connections beyond his business empire. Now, he found himself the father of not just Hannah, but thousands of enhanced humans who called him uncle or elder brother or simply friend. Do you think we can win? He asked Hannah one evening as they watched the sunset from his penthouse. Dad, she said, taking his hand. The Vex created their own downfall. They gave humanity's children the tools to fight back. But they never understood what makes us human. They never understood that we would rather die than abandon family. She squeezed his hand gently. And now all of humanity is our family. Every person on Earth is someone we will fight to protect. The Vex are about to learn what happens when you threaten a human's family. 18 months later, when the Vex fleet arrived at Earth, they found humanity ready for them. And leading the defense were 3,000 enhanced humans who had learned the most important lesson of all, that family is worth any sacrifice. The Vex had created the instruments of their own defeat. They had given Earth's children the power to save their world.